shit.
Hello and welcome to North Country Matters for October 18th, 2012. This civic media program is produced at the WCKN student-run cable television studio on the ground floor of the Student Center of Clarkson University. This civic media series is a partnership production of Clarkson's Communication and Media Department, St. Lawrence County chapter of the American Association of University Women, and the St. Lawrence County League of Women Voters. Production crew for this series are all Clarkson University students. My name is Bill Wimmer. I'm a student at Clarkson and assistant editor of the Clarkson Integrator. Today we speak with Sallie Brothers of the St. Lawrence County Board of Legislators. Joining us is local AAUW member Ann Carvill. Welcome to the both of you. Ann, can you get us started?
Yes, I certainly will. Sallie, to begin with, would you please give a brief status update on where the county budget stands?
Well, we've just begun doing actual budget modification, and we started Monday night and Tuesday night. So right now we are down about $895,000 from the original budget level of 19.8%. So there were $750,000 worth of cuts in highway alone and some other miscellaneous cuts. We will continue that Monday night, and we'll be doing it Monday afternoon and evening, Tuesday, and whatever time we need to go through the budget and try to slim it down.
Right. Sallie, are there certain areas, you just mentioned ones, that are taking the big hits in the budget cutting process?
Part of the problem with highway, that the reason it took such a big hit, is that we are very limited because of the mandates that the state has. We're very limited as to what parts of the budget we can actually cut. And unfortunately for highway, they have a lot of areas which can be cut. Now, it doesn't mean they should be or they ought to be. It means that we are able to shave dollars off of them. But my concern is, and it's the concern of every legislator, how long can we keep doing this? We've been doing it for off and on for 5 years now.
Just before you came in, Town Supervisor Marie Reagan was here, and she talked about how there's $12 million that you were expecting to get, but didn't, some of it in casino money. I wonder if you could expound a little bit on the monies that you were expecting but aren't getting.
Well, 12
Or
million.
delayed monies.
Oh, delayed monies is a different thing.
Yes.
Delayed
Right.
monies are monies that the state owes us. We file for reimbursement. They have to pay us, and they are not timely about it at all. And what happens is that we have issues of cash flow, and that's why we had to borrow 8.5 last year, and why we did 12 this year. And the reason is that you have to have cash to pay your bills, to pay your employees, to do the business that you need to do. And without that cash, you just can't hand somebody a slip saying, oh, well, we'll get to you later, because the state hasn't paid us. People's businesses, people's lives go on whether the state decides to pay or not. Now, we're owed that money, and we will get that money. But in the meantime, and in between time, here we are kind of stuck with that situation. And we're not alone. We're not alone at all.
Sallie, what's going on with budgets all over the state is very serious, and what's going on at our county level has been characterized as a crisis. Do you agree with that characterization of what's going on?
I think that's pretty close to where we're at. And if you determine that the crisis concept has to do with the level of increase in property taxes for the people, because we have no choice to do this. When they say you do have a choice, well, that's why we're doing budget modification, because we're going to try to find places where we can cut that down.
Right.
And we already have. But I don't know how much more or where it's going to come from. Ask me in a few weeks and I could tell you, because we'll have been through the process.
Now, you're fairly open to the prospect of raising sales taxes, is that correct?
Yes.
I mean, there are only basically 3 ways to do this. There's sales tax, property tax, income tax, and that's it.
Income tax doesn't work for
And
us.
none of them are very popular. Traditionally, Democrats have tended to oppose sales taxes on the grounds that they're regressive, that lower income people pay a higher percentage of it. At the same time, we're all aware of the problems with property taxes, which also indirectly disadvantage lower income people because their school systems aren't as good. So could you elaborate a little bit on why you think the sales tax, unpleasant as it may be,
Unpleasant, yes, I think
nobody
that
likes
is.
it, but is the best available option?
A lot of time, for a long time, I opposed the sales tax. When it first said that we could do it and all these other counties were doing it, I said, I believe that we didn't need to do it because we were able to manage our finances and I didn't want to increase tax on the people. And that was the majority feeling on the part of the board. So we didn't increase the sales tax. What happened then, however, and what has changed my mind, is that as we have needed more and more revenue, property tax can't generate that revenue. It can't generate the increases that we've had put upon us by the state, and just general increases in the cost of surviving, you know, in terms of electrical utilities, fuel, gas, and so on. And what happened was I started looking at it differently, and we have about 66,000 different properties in St. Lawrence County. However, a lot of them are owned by a number of people, for example, large farmers and so on. And what happens is that those 66,000 parcels have to carry that whole property tax. Mm-hmm. Whereas the sales tax increase, that 1%, would enable us to collect it from people coming into our county who do not use our services. Mm-hmm. Because the people who own that land use our services for the most part. And therefore, they have only one thing to offer for us, and that is increased income and no cost to us for services. So that's why I've gone with the 1% sales tax.
Would there be exemptions on certain necessities to offset the problem of regressivity, or could there be subsidies to
I think that what's
low-income
going to
people?
happen is that before we can get into that discussion, that's like here. We're over here. Mm-hmm. We haven't even come close to convincing our state representatives to provide us with the opportunity to do just that.
We've mentioned the problem of the highway budget is there, it's accessible, it's vulnerable, and therefore it's getting cut. Mm-hmm. But obviously one of the main problems we are going to have in the future is infrastructure. It's a national problem. Mm-hmm. But we want to talk a little bit more generally about economic development, but clearly transportation's got to be a part of that. And infrastructure's got to be a part of that.
Yes.
So at some point, these cuts have got to be made up, or this damage has got to be repaired.
How long can you operate a business? How long can you operate the county? How long can you do this when you don't buy or replace equipment? Mm-hmm. You even cut the repair parts budget, which we've done. You cut every possible thing you can. We were reducing things by $1,000 and $500 and $3,000, and that's on a $240 million budget. But we don't control.
But you're clearly robbing the future. I mean, sooner or later it's going to have to be made up.
I am in total agreement with that.
Let me broaden the question a little bit. I mean, there has been, of course, a great deal of discussion of the possibility of an I-98 rooftop highway. Whatever the merits of that idea, it does not seem, frankly, to be in the immediate cards. And I wonder if you would favor spending the DOT funds that apparently have already been allocated for improvements, upgrading to Route 11 in the meantime while waiting for the I-98 project to mature.
I don't know. I think that I certainly think we need to take a look at where that money is going to go and what it specifically will do. Mm-hmm. Not
because that is our main street. I mean, Route 11 at the moment is the lifeline.
Route 11 is it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Route 11 is it, and 37. Mm-hmm. Those are the two.
Right.
One of the things that you have to take a look at is think about what are they going to spend the money on specifically. I don't want to just give a free hand. but we're looking at
Wouldn't we
what's
have
going-
input in that, into that?
I would certainly hope
And
so.
wouldn't that be an opportunity for public discussion,
I think it should be.
bypass versus passing lanes or whatever?
Absolutely.
So that whatever happens is done with a
I
maximum
don't believe that,
popular
I don't believe
support.
that the bureaucracy of the DOT should make the decisions with regard to certain things like bypasses, improvements, and so on. Right now, they go ahead and they do things, and we sit and look at that, and we think, oh, okay. But when do they ask us? How do they communicate with us?
This is a rather sensitive issue in Canton at
Oh,
this very
yeah,
moment. I mean,
yeah,
we
I
woke
would-
up and discovered there were no trees anymore on
Oh,
Main Street. Now,
I-
whatever the
I
merits
think-
of that, people did not feel that we'd been treated candidly or that the discussion had been an open and full.
Well, I can appreciate that, because I think that I agree with you. I think that there needed to be more discussion about it, but certain bureaucracies, let's put it this way, elected officials come and go, bureaucracy is there forever.
Right, right. Do you have any other ideas, longer range, apart from this immediate budget crisis, about how we can stimulate economic development in this county, make it the kind of place where young people want to stay and interesting people want to move in, while preserving the environment and the quality of life that
I think that
Makes us wanna be here.
one of the things that we need to develop more, and I think we have ignored our resources. We have how many beautiful rivers and fishing and all of these outdoor activities that tourists
and organic farms.
organic farms that people just absolutely love to be a participant in and to come to visit. And I'm a real strong believer in developing the trail system,
Yes.
the multi-use notice trail system, so that people who like to ride horses, who like to ride mountain bikes, who like to hike, who like all of that, those are all people that would come here and live here after they've enjoyed what it is. Because obviously, you know, my husband and I both are generational livers in this area. We've just been here, and our families have been here, and we like it
Getting
here.
more summer people to winter over.
I would like that.
Let me get even broader than that and raise the question of climate change and global warming. I understand the board has recently tabled a fairly mild resolution on the subject. What are the chances of some version of that resolution seeing the light of day? Or do you think it's an issue? I mean,
I think that there were issues with the initial program, the initial document. And what happened was people got into the belief that they didn't like it. They were, and so in legislators, they didn't like it. They didn't like this part. They didn't like that part. And it was such a comprehensive document that it was hard to focus in on what didn't you like?
Where did it come from? How was it generated?
The Environmental Management Council. I think that's the name of it, Environmental Management Council. They're the ones that developed it, and what happened, they did it at the request of the board, by the way.
Oh.
But they went, I think the board members felt they went too deeply or too expansively. They were concerned, different concerns, people expressed concerns about nuclear power, people expressed concerns about carbon credits. And so each time that the management council was sent back to do it again, to redo it, to remodify it, I don't think they ever got any absolutely clear parameters for what they needed to present. And sometimes when something like that comes up repeatedly, what you end up with is people set in their ways. Now
Deadlock.
we've got to
Right.
reevaluate it.
Right. And
Yes.
wrap up.
What are we down to? Just a few minutes now?
We're down to.
Oh, okay,
Oh,
so we got a
okay.
little while here.
Oh, sorry.
Sally, I just had a few questions back to issues like the sales tax. We also didn't mention the 2% tax cap. There will be members of the public that will be asking about that. I would like you to talk a little bit about how that law fits in with what's possible to do, and also the issue of increasing the sales tax that you talked about earlier. What are the legal implications of how does that happen? Do you have the authority just to raise it?
No.
Or-
To raise sales tax?
Yes.
Absolutely not. We have, Addie Russell in the Assembly has an Assembly bill, but we have no Senate sponsor.
Mhm.
Our two senators refuse to do so. They just feel that we need to trim more, and I think that's a burden on the property taxpayer.
Mhm.
They're shifting it all to the property taxpayer and not to the way I explained before, how I perceive the sales tax providing income, which is not demanding services from us. The 2% tax cap,
Mhm.
it is really not a 2% tax cap. When the comptroller comes up with his very intricate formula for how to determine what is our cap, our cap last year was like 4.2%, and we raised our taxes. We raised our taxes 5.5, and we did it so that we would have some money to go into fund balance to try to build it up and protect it. Unfortunately, the 2012 budget held many surprises for us, shall we say, where people had made what I would consider serious mistakes in their estimation of revenue versus expenses, and as a result, we had to use what we had set aside to cover those places in the budget. The tax cap is out there for a reason, and we don't want to attack it. And if we had the sales tax, we would be able to not only fulfill our budgetary requirements, but actually reduce our taxes. Certainly over a 5-year period, we could drop them by almost 20%, our true value tax rate.
Sallie, why are the senators so convinced? They must be convinced that there's fat in the budget that you haven't cut. Otherwise, they would agree to sponsor increasing the sales tax. So how do they know exactly what's in there? Have they studied it well enough to come to the conclusion
We
that there's
have
fat?
met with the Senate Finance Committee,
Mhm.
and we have met with our senators and given them extensive materials. Their arguments are things like, well, we shouldn't have bought a $700,000 financial system. The financial system we were using is 11 years old. It is cumbersome, it is not integrated, and it doesn't enable us to find the kinds of mistakes that we've run into that cost us additional monies when we've thought we had a budget that was set, and then we find out that, oh well, this problem was out there and we couldn't find it because the system didn't allow it. So over the last 5 years, we've put aside almost $250,000 to make the first payment on this, and it's a 5-year deal. We are buying it, just like so many Americans, we're buying it on time. So we didn't spend $700,000 in 1 year by any stretch of the imagination. But if we don't become more cognizant of our financial systems and where we're at, if we don't have adequate information on our budget, there is no way that we cannot repeat errors and continue to repeat them. That's terrible to be doing that. That's just absolutely insane not to take care of your budget.
One of the problems, obviously, is that these issues they're complicated, for one thing,
Oh.
and they're not widely understood by the
No.
public at large. One suspects they're not even all that well understood by some local officials. Now, you mentioned that you've been meeting with town supervisors and mayors and so forth recently to try to explain the situation. Would you be able to sort of summarize briefly how they're reacting and what sources of misunderstanding?
Well,
may
certainly,
exist?
the history of the sales tax goes back to '65. And so what happened was the state gave the county the tool to pay for its Medicaid. That's what the sales tax was for. And the Board of Supervisors at that time, who ran the county, passed a resolution to take half of the sales tax money and distribute it to the towns and villages, leaving the county with half of the money. So over the years, what's happened is that the county has not been able to keep up in terms of revenue. So the meetings with the supervisors and the mayors was to try to explain to them where we were going. And because they became very upset at the concept that we might reevaluate redistribution of that sales tax and take some back, I don't see that being a likely scenario at all. But they wanted to hear from us, and they were pretty upset. They wanted us to hear from them, and we did.
If the general public want to become better informed on this, how do they do it? Can they get information on the county's website? Does this kind of thing?
On the sales tax?
Well, on the general budget situation.
Oh, the budget is available to anyone. We've had extra copies printed, so they can get that. I'm not sure.
But there's no way to get into the various arguments and rationales that have been made, the kind of discussion we're having
Well, they
here.
can come. They can come to our budget hearings.
Mhm.
Anybody can come to our budget hearings.
Mhm.
They are formal
Mhm.
hearings that we operate somewhat informally because we're working through this budget. There's special board meetings. Okay.
But these are open to the public. People can
Oh, yeah.
just show up. They
We
don't
will
need
meet at 4:30 on Monday, and then break at 5:30 for our regular meeting, and then start again at 7. And many times, our legislators we don't get any, we just don't stop.
Mhm.
And sometimes it runs till 10 or 11 at night.
Sallie, I saw there was an article, St. Lawrence County deputies defend their jobs, and they're talking about how they had pay freezes and that they obviously do important jobs that are necessary. Do you think that there will be cuts in that area, and if so, what will the consequences be, do you think?
I hope there are no cuts in that area. Because as a person who lives in the rural areas, essentially they are our law enforcement. But they do more than that, and I think that if you were to speak with Sheriff Wells, he might be a good person to interview, because he can tell you all of the different types of duties that they are mandated to perform in the sheriff's office in addition. And this is our whole criminal division. This is everything. So when someone is broken into, someone is needed to supplement local police, the people that are called in and that show up are the sheriffs. So I would hope that it was not cut.
Right. Well, that would be good. The state has put a lot of stress on county budgets by delaying money, and then there are laws where they want to cap how much people are taxed. Where do you see this all evolving to? Do you feel like you're being listened to when you make complaints to the state level about how revenues are down, delayed payments, caps on taxes? Where does that leave us? What are you telling them?
Leaves us between a rock and a hard place. That's really where it does, because we have been communicating and expressing. And when I say we, I don't mean just St. Lawrence County. There isn't a county, a city, a village, or a town that hasn't been hit hard by all of these issues. And the state has simply not responded to us. If you are speaking about some of our state representatives, and in terms of the governor wants to make New York a more business-friendly place. He wants to have reduced property taxes. But you can't push everything down on the county, who only has property tax and sales tax. The state has income tax, it has fees and everything. So it has a larger base to get its money from. They've pushed it from a base like this down to this base that we have.
Right.
I just don't know where it's going. I think that at some point, the concept is going to have to be expressed, or at least dealt with, that you have to give us mandate relief. You can't tell us that we have to do A, B, C, D, and E, and do it in this format, and then say, you pay for it.
Didn't the governor promise that? But there's been very little action on that.
Mandate relief committee, yes. I have spoken before one of those, yes. I haven't seen
What is-
much.
What is the unemployment rate in St. Lawrence County at the moment?
The last I know, it was about a little 11%, something, 11.1.
So it's well above the national
Oh,
average.
yeah.
And this is unusual for St. Lawrence County. We don't have typically
Oh,
11%. It's been higher.
We've been higher, but we've been running around 9, 10, 11, right in that range.
Right.
Right
Before
in that range.
2008?
Yeah, not before
No,
2008.
I'm just saying this is a result, but
Yeah.
still, even then it was higher.
Well, think about it, and it's in 2000, since 2008.
Right.
We've had General Motors close, we've had Alcoa reduce, we've had numerous companies that have reduced their impact on the county. You don't have those dollars as multipliers.
Right. Obviously, a lot of these problems simply can't be resolved at the county level. They need state action, and they arguably need federal action. Now, this is maybe the most controversial subject in American politics today. There are those who argue, people like economist Paul Krugman, people in the left wing, so to speak, of the Democratic Party, argue you need federal stimulus money in order to address the problems of unemployment. There are obviously people on the other side who argue vehemently against any kind of government intervention. What are your own feelings about this? And is there any way that people in the county and legislators in the county can have some sort of influence on not only state but on national policy in this regard?
One of the things, first I better, in the form of disclosure, better say that I am a Democrat, so I have values that are typical of that party, all right? So.
Which is not monolithic by any means.
No,
obviously.
it's not. No, it's not. But I would say that what we need is federal action. We need our senators, Schumer and Gillibrand. We need our representative, Bill Owens. And they have, I'm going to say, they have been very good with us. They have been here, they do and listen to us. We get good response from them, and they have tried and made differences. But remember, Bill Owens is one of 435, and Kirsten and Chuck are 2 of 100.
Right.
We need a lot of help up here.
We have a minute or so. What would you like to add that we haven't touched?
Well, I would like
do we
to
have?
say not so much that we haven't touched it, I would like to say that people should come to the budget hearings. I really think that they can come, they can sit there, they
Local democracy in action?
that's where they need to be, and they can express to us, if they would want to, they can express to us their feelings on sales tax.
Will they sign up ahead of time to speak at these meetings?
Well, let's put it this way. I chair those meetings, and if someone comes in and wants to speak, I will permit them to speak.
Okay.
But one more thing, and that is, we talked at the mayor's meeting, and Joe Gray had a great idea, and I would really recommend it, and that is, maybe every town should run a paper poll and ask people, because we legally cannot do a referendum. We looked into it. We legally would love to ask the people to give their voice, but we cannot.
Interesting.
Yeah, well, we found it interesting too.
So,
All right. And I'm sorry, but we are out of time. On behalf of the organizers, I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to
And
talk
on
with
the
us
climate action.
and for your willingness to participate in our local civic media program. Until next time, remember, our North Country matters.